Something wasn't right. The world could feel it. For weeks, Tamela Mann had been missing from public view. Concerts were canceled, appearances skipped, interviews postponed. Fans watched as her official pages posted nothing but a single image. Hands pressed in prayer. No words, no updates, just silence. It was enough to send quiet waves of concern across the gospel world. But no one expected what came next. Behind the scenes, her daughter, her own flesh and blood, was growing more and more anxious. Questions were left unanswered. Texts were ignored. Phone calls went straight to voicemail. And still, the only person speaking to the public was David Mann, Tamela's husband. He appeared calm, always hopeful. He quoted scripture. He asked for prayers. His Instagram showed nothing but faith and unity. But Tamela's daughter was no longer buying it. Then it happened. Out of nowhere, she went live on Instagram. Her face appeared on the screen, stripped of glamour. No makeup, red eyes, a cracked voice. There was no upbeat music, no bright lighting, no rehearsed message. Just a woman at her emotional limit. "I can't do this anymore," she said, trembling. "I'm tired of acting like everything's fine when it's not." The live lasted less than 20 minutes, but what she said in those few moments shook the entire gospel world. She claimed that David had been hiding her mother's real condition, that he had taken full control of Tamela's medical care, that decisions were made without the input of the family, that even Tamela's closest friends didn't know what was truly going on. And then came the words that made hearts stop. "My mama trusted him," she whispered, "but I don't. Not with this. Not with her." She said she had been begging to speak with doctors and to bring in specialists. She wanted to know what was really happening. But all her efforts had been met with silence. She said she was kept away from meetings. She wasn't allowed to see medical documents. And every time she asked, the answer was the same. David's handling it. Fans who had followed the Mann family for years were stunned. How could the man who once made them laugh as Mr. Brown now be the one accused of silencing his own wife's daughter? But it did not stop there. Tamela's daughter said that certain medications were being pushed, even when Tamela showed side effects. That a second opinion from a trusted family doctor was blocked. Behind the photos of unity and strength was a woman isolated, and a daughter pleading to be heard. Privately didn't work, she said during the live. He wouldn't listen. Nobody would. And then it was gone. The video was deleted. The feed disappeared. But the internet never forgets. Fans had already recorded it, clipped it, and posted it across social media. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook groups, everywhere. The gospel world was now divided. Some stood with David, defending him as a faithful husband, doing his best during a painful time. But others were not so sure. "This isn't just a health scare," one commenter posted. "This feels like a cover-up." "Tamela gave us her voice," wrote another. "The least we can do is listen to her daughters." Then came the cryptic post. Just hours after the live stream vanished, Tamela's daughter posted a black screen on her Instagram story. 3 words glowed in white. "You'll all see." That night, whispers became shouts. People began to dig. Gospel bloggers pulled old videos. TikTokers dissected Tamela's last public appearance. Some claimed she looked dazed. Others zoomed in on her eyes during interviews, saying she didn't seem like herself. One even spliced together a moment from David's cooking show, where he laughed about being in control of the house, and paired it with the daughter's voicemail. It played like a trailer for a documentary. Then came the leaks. Screenshots of private messages, anonymous tips. One message arrived in the inbox of a well-known gospel blog. It was from someone claiming to be a nurse at the rehab center where Tamela was staying. There was tension every time Mr. Mann came in. The message read, "We were told not to speak to anyone but him." Even when her daughter came to visit, she wasn't allowed into meetings. That same week, a voicemail surfaced. It had been sent by Tamela's daughter to a friend after a hospital visit. In the recording, she was sobbing uncontrollably. "He looked me in the face," she cried, "and told me, 'You're not making the decisions here. I begged him. I begged him to try a different treatment. He said Tamila already agreed. But how could she agree? She doesn't even remember what day it is. Fans were horrified. If what she said was true, then David wasn't just managing Tamila's care. He was allegedly doing it without her full understanding or input from her daughter. Church gossip pages were on fire. Comment sections overflowed. One user wrote, "This isn't Mr. Brown. This is Mr. Gaslight." More family members began speaking anonymously. One cousin said the family group chat had exploded. Some relatives were furious. They said they were told Tamila's health issues were minor. They were shocked to learn how serious things really were. One of Tamila's nieces went live and said, "They're treating this like a business crisis, not a health emergency. We love Aunt Tamila, but we don't even know what's real anymore." What started as a family crisis was now becoming a full-blown war. Just when it felt like the situation couldn't get more tangled, something even more disturbing came to light. Days after Tamila's daughter went silent again, a shocking new report leaked into the hands of a private Reddit group for healthcare workers. It wasn't gossip, it wasn't a rumor, it was a hospital security report. And what it revealed left everyone stunned. According to the document, Tamela Mann had been removed from her long-term care facility in the middle of the night. Not in the morning, not during visiting hours, but at exactly 3:46 a.m. No press announcement, no alert to her siblings, no final prayer circle. She was simply gone. The transfer had been arranged quietly. A private ambulance arrived with tinted windows and minimal staff. A nurse on shift later told an online gospel blogger that the atmosphere that night felt tense and rushed. No one would say where Tamila was being moved. Some of the regular nurses weren't even informed until the next shift began. It was a full blackout. And the name on the discharge paperwork? David Mann. Now, under normal circumstances, no one would question a husband making decisions for his wife. But this wasn't a normal situation. Not when her daughter had already claimed she was being kept in the dark. Not when the family had been left out. And definitely not when the internet had already heard recordings of Tamila's daughter crying and begging for answers. That 3:46 a.m. ambulance ride looked less like a medical transfer and more like a calculated disappearance. Speculation spread fast. Where had Tamila been taken? Some fans believed she was moved to a private treatment facility in Texas, one known for tight media security and complete patient privacy. Others claimed she was being treated by a controversial alternative medicine specialist in Atlanta. This was the same doctor, people noted, who had worked with other gospel figures trying to avoid chemo and radiation. But no one could confirm anything, because after that night, Tamila vanished from the public eye completely. No photos, no messages, no hospital staff leaks, not even a blurred paparazzi shot through a window. Then came another twist. A brief press statement was released, not from David, but from the family's lawyer. It was cold, it was vague, and it raised even more questions. David Mann is acting in accordance with his legal authority as Tamela Mann's spouse. All medical decisions are being made with the patient's best interest in mind. There was no mention of the daughter, no reference to the deleted Instagram Live, no explanation for the midnight hospital transfer. Just legal language, clean, careful, controlled. The internet was not satisfied. If anything, the outrage grew louder. A TikTok account run by a legal advocate posted a full breakdown of power of attorney laws. She explained that if Tamila was experiencing neurological issues, as David himself had once claimed, then any legal documents she signed during that time could be challenged in court, especially if her decision-making ability was impaired. Then came the rumors of a lawsuit. Multiple gossip blogs, including one with a direct source inside the Mann family, reported that Tamila's daughter had hired a legal team. She had allegedly filed a motion to obtain full access to her mother's medical records and to investigate whether David had been overstepping his authority. Fans immediately rallied online. The hashtag #FreeTamila began trending. Church gossip pages started posting before and after photos of Tamila from 2021 and from her last public appearance. One picture showed her smiling, radiant, and full of energy. The other showed her with distant eyes, looking frail and thin. A caption read, "This is what happens when truth gets locked in a prayer closet." Still, there was no statement from David, no denial, no explanation. Just another Bible verse posted on his social media feed. "And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts." Fans were no longer buying it. And Tamila's voice, still missing. With the story spiraling, fans were desperate for answers. Then, a woman appeared online claiming to be the former house manager for the Mann family. She posted a 25-minute video titled, "What I saw working for the Manns, it wasn't all God and glory." She said she had been hired to help manage the household and assist with events, but over time she saw things that deeply troubled her. Her most serious claim was that David controlled every single part of Tamila's life, from her diet to her schedule, from what appearances she could make to what she was allowed to do alone. She said Tamila would sometimes drift off mid-conversation during meetings. She described moments where Tamila seemed confused and said those moments were often explained away as fatigue or stress. The house manager said she once heard Tamila trying to fire her after a disagreement, but instead of accepting it, David allegedly stepped in and said, "I'll handle it. You stay." She also claimed Tamila's calendar was carefully managed, not by Tamila herself, but by David and his team. If Tamila was struggling, David would quietly reschedule or cancel events without explaining the full story to fans. Her final claim was perhaps the most heartbreaking. She said there were moments when Tamila wanted to record a personal video message for fans, just to say thank you or to give an update. But David allegedly stopped her every time, saying, "Not now. You don't look ready." The ex-employee paused in her video and looked directly into the camera. "She wasn't weak," she said. "She just wasn't allowed to be seen." That statement sent shockwaves through the gospel world. If true, it meant Tamila's image was being protected at the cost of her autonomy. It meant her silence might not be voluntary. It might be controlled. Amid all this chaos, Tamila's daughter remained quiet. No new live streams, no interviews, no statements, until she posted one photo, a black and white image of her and Tamila holding hands. The caption said, "I just want her back." That single sentence shattered the internet. Thousands of comments poured in. "You're not alone." "Speak your truth." "Protect your mother." The gospel world had never seen anything like it. Because now, this was not just a story about illness. It was a story about grief, about a daughter mourning her mother while she was still alive. A mother who built her life singing, praising, and healing others. A woman who gave everything to the gospel. But now, her own voice was missing. People began to ask the hardest question of all. Where is Tamila? And if she could speak, what would she say? Would she defend David? Would she confirm her daughter's claims? Would she break her silence? Or had that silence been forced on her? As the days turned into weeks, the silence from Tamela Mann's side remained heavy. Every passing moment without her voice only made the rumors louder, the accusations sharper, and the pain deeper for her fans and loved ones. But while Tamila stayed unseen, the voices around her kept getting louder. People who once remained quiet were now speaking. Not just family, not just fans, but people who had worked beside the Manns. People who had seen what the cameras never did, and people who now refused to stay quiet. According to a cousin of Tamila's, who chose to remain anonymous but spoke with a popular gospel gossip page, the family was never united about how Tamila's care was being handled. They claimed that some of Tamila's siblings had been told everything was fine, that it was minor. Just exhaustion, a little stress, nothing to worry about. So they stayed calm. But after Instagram Live and the hospital transfer, everything changed. The family group chat reportedly exploded with messages. Some members were furious. They could not believe what had been hidden from them. One relative even said they had to learn about the severity of Tamila's condition through social media. That wasn't just a mistake. That was betrayal. A niece who had always been close to Tamila went live on TikTok just days later. "They're acting like this is some PR mess, like it's about damage control," she said. "But this isn't about a press tour. This is about my aunt's life." Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. "We don't even know what's real anymore." That sentence echoed across the internet. Because when your own family doesn't know what's real, it's no longer just family drama. It becomes a crisis of truth. As this spiritual storm unfolded online, gospel fans began to do what the internet does best. They followed the money. They noticed something strange. Ever since news broke about Tamila's illness, streams of her gospel songs had surged. Her most famous singles were trending again. Her old concert videos were shared across social platforms. Her ministry's donation page saw an increase in activity. Her gospel cookbook, once sitting quietly on Amazon, suddenly climbed back into the top 10. Coincidence? Possibly. But in the middle of all the confusion, it raised one very serious question. Was someone benefiting from Tamila's silence? Was her image, her suffering, being used to drive sympathy, sales, and faith? Was the brand being protected at her expense? Because one thing was clear. David Mann had always been focused on building the Mann brand. And now that brand was under pressure, like never before. If Tamila's condition was worse than anyone knew, and David had chosen to keep that quiet, not for her protection, but for public image, that wasn't just bad judgment. That was manipulation wrapped in a gospel robe. And what made it even worse? Tamila herself had not been seen or heard since the scandal began. No new photos, no statements, no confirmation that she was even aware of what was happening around her. One supposed insider from the family's church shared anonymously that Tamila had attempted to record a short video from her bed, just to thank her fans, to show them she was still here. But according to the source, David stopped it. He allegedly told her that she didn't look strong enough, that it would worry people, that it wasn't the right time. In simpler words, it didn't fit the image. So once again, Tamila was silenced. And every day that passed without a sign of her life only fed more panic, more doubt, and more heartbreak. The cracks were becoming impossible to hide. David Mann's silence was starting to look less like grace and more like control. The fans wanted answers. The gospel world was shaking. And David? He just kept posting more scripture. No denials, no clarifications, just verses. She is still. She is strong. She is mine. But what did that even mean? To the outside world, it was poetic. To Tamila's daughter, it sounded like possession. Behind closed doors, the Mann family was reportedly in full meltdown mode. Staffers quit. Old assistants came forward. Former employees from past tours and appearances started whispering to bloggers. One said, "David is not evil, but he loves control. Always has, especially when it comes to the brand." Others described how Tamila had gradually been pulled away from public life even before her health became a topic. Some said she had missed shows for rest, even when she was clearly able to perform. But now, with all this unfolding, it painted a different picture. Had her health been worse all along? Had her voice been removed from her own legacy? And had David been preparing for this moment, where he alone would speak for her? Across YouTube, creators made timelines. TikTokers posted reaction videos. Twitter accounts lit up with side-by-side comparisons and alleged receipts. Some gospel influencers posted, "This isn't an episode of Meet the Browns. This is spiritual warfare." Others tweeted, "If her daughter is crying out to the world, believe her." Even celebrities began reacting. Kirk Franklin tweeted a single emoji, praying hands, followed by 4 words. "Some things don't add up." Yolanda Adams quietly liked a comment that said, "Protect black women, even from their own husbands." Fantasia went live and spoke from the heart. "I've been there. When people stop letting you talk for yourself, it's time to ask why." It was clear. The gospel community wasn't just watching this unfold. They were waking up. Tamila's daughter remained missing from social media. No new posts, no new videos. Just that one heartbreaking image of her holding her mother's hand with the caption, "I just want her back." One gospel blogger wrote, "That broke us, because this isn't just about family drama. This is grief before goodbye." Was Tamila still aware of what was happening? Did she know that her daughter had been pushed aside? Did she know about the live video, the cryptic posts, the crying voicemail? Or had the walls been built too high around her? Perfect. Let's conclude with, the walls had cracked. The silence had shattered. But what came next shook the foundation of everything Tamela and David Mann had spent decades building. It began with a single document. A legal filing surfaced, reportedly submitted by Tamela's daughter through her attorneys. The motion requested full access to her mother's medical records, a review of all medical decisions made in recent months, and an official investigation into whether David Mann had exceeded his legal authority as her medical guardian. The document also asked the court to examine Tamela's mental clarity at the time certain permissions or power of attorney forms may have been signed. If Tamela had been suffering from memory loss or confusion during those moments, the legal standing of David's control could collapse. This wasn't internet gossip anymore. This was real, and it had gone to court. Free Tamela trends nationwide. When the lawsuit became public knowledge, fans erupted. The hashtag #FreeTamela exploded on social media. Influencers, gospel bloggers, and celebrities began resharing the daughter's old posts. One user created a video montage showing Tamela over the years, from her earliest performances, her appearances on stage with David, her sitcom moments as Cora, and finally, the now viral photo of her looking fragile in her last appearance. The final slide read, "When the voice goes silent, who speaks for her?" The post had over 1 million views in 24 hours. Fan-made videos poured in with emotional gospel soundtracks, urging others to demand answers. People lit candles in Tamela's honor, posted prayers, and flooded David's social media comments. Let her speak. Where is she? This isn't leadership, it's controlled. For years, Christian media had supported the Manns. Interviews, features, partnerships. But now, those same outlets were under fire for staying silent. Pressure built. And soon, even the platforms that once protected the brand began to speak. One faith-based podcast aired an emergency episode titled, When Faith Meets Control, the Tamela Mann Silence. In it, a former employee of a Christian network said on air, "We were told not to cover the story, not to speculate. But how long can we stay quiet when a woman of faith is missing from her own life?" Then, even more began to unravel. With public interest skyrocketing, several media companies reportedly reached out to Tamela's daughter. Offers came from 3 YouTube documentary channels, 1 faith-based podcast, and allegedly 2 streaming platforms. All of them wanted to give her a chance to speak. According to gospel blogs, one particular outlet was even planning a docuseries titled "Behind the Gospel: The Mann Family Story." It would include interviews with former staff, nurses, musicians, church members, and insiders. Some of them had already gone on record anonymously. One of them was even rumored to be a nurse who treated Tamela at the original hospital. They reportedly said that Tamela wasn't just weak, she was barely responsive, and that all instructions had come directly from David. The only person allowed to speak on her behalf was him. Still, no statement from Tamela. Amid all the media chaos, Tamela remained absent. The last known image of her was now over 2 months old. It showed her seated, looking thinner, her eyes distant. Her daughter had posted it weeks earlier, but there were no live videos, no audio messages, no photos holding a sign, nothing to confirm she even knew what was happening. Some fans believed David had completely isolated her from the outside world. Others hoped she was simply recovering. But the silence was deafening. And the longer it went on, the more people began to accept a terrifying possibility. Maybe Tamela Mann wasn't able to speak anymore. Or maybe, worse, she was being prevented from trying. Finally, after weeks of mounting pressure, David posted something new. It wasn't a video, it wasn't a statement, it wasn't even a sentence, it was just a Bible verse. "And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." John 1:5 fans were furious. The top comment under the post read, "You're not Jesus, you're her husband. Say something." Another wrote, "This isn't darkness. This is confusing, and God is not the author of confusion." Even some of his longtime supporters began to unfollow. Gospel stars stopped liking his posts. Christian influencers began to openly call for him to make a real statement. But none came. Just more scripture, more silence, more control. David and Tamela had spent their careers building one of the strongest gospel empires in the country. Books, albums, television, tours, products. But now that empire was showing cracks. Bookings were being pulled. Church conferences quietly removed the Mann name from their speaker lists. Gospel radio stations started asking producers whether they should still feature the Mann's music. Brands that had collaborated with the couple's product lines began distancing themselves. The Mann brand, once rooted in family, laughter, faith, and unity, was now at risk of being remembered as a cautionary tale. All because of one simple truth. Tamela was missing, and no one would explain why. Final word. Whose voice matters now? Tamela's daughter has not posted another video. She hasn't done a tell-all. She hasn't gone on a press tour. Just silence. And one tweet pinned to the top of her page. Sometimes, silence is survival. And maybe that says more than any live stream ever could. Because behind the pain, behind the rumors, behind the legal papers, and the social media debates, this is about something deeper. A woman who gave her life to the gospel. A daughter fighting to be heard. And a husband being accused of hiding more than just his wife's condition. This is no longer a question of whose story we believe. It's a question of whose story we are even allowed to hear. Because Tamela Mann has not spoken. And until she does, the world will keep asking, is she being protected or controlled? Is this a health crisis or a spiritual cover-up? Is the gospel community supporting her or enabling silence? And if this were your mother, your voice, your queen, would you still stay quiet? Keep praying for Tamila, because no matter who is right or wrong, she's the one paying the price.